Hello everyone, my name is Zofia Błożyca, and today on our podcast by SFI Academic IT Festival, I'll be pleased to talk with Kenneth Harris, one of the youngest, most creative and boldest senior engineers. So at the beginning, I wanted to ask you, how are you doing lately? Are you working from home during this rough time?
Yeah, I'm actually at home pretty much every day now. All our NASA facilities are pretty much locked down unless you're essential to different missions. So if you're actually flying satellites, if you're collecting data, then you're allowed to be in those areas for a brief amount of time. But since I'm not flying anything right now, we're actually building something. I'm lucky enough to be home still doing my work.
Okay, good to hear that. And unfortunately, because of the coronavirus, our festival had to be postponed until October. And in your lecture at the festival, you will be speaking about satellites. Could you give the listening public a little sneak peek about it? What you'll be presenting at the lecture?
Yeah, sure. So imagine whatever your definition of a satellite is, and for us, it's categorized into two different things. There's artificial satellites, which are things that we intentionally put into orbit and that will, orbit the Earth or some other body to collect data or do whatever purpose that we send it up there. And then there are natural satellites, which are like the moon and in our case, Earth around the sun and things like that. So when you think back to when satellites were first invented, you think about just the size and the purpose that they had behind them. And really what I want to get into in my lecture is how you go about building a satellite, how you decide on the purpose and how you really get into the nuts and bolts of things. If you look back to 1957, when Russia launched their first satellite, which was Sputnik 1, that satellite was really launched not only to prove that Russia could send objects into space using their missile systems at the time, but it was also to study drag forces and things like that while orbiting the Earth to give us a better understanding of other things that we wanted to send to the Earth. And the funny thing about Sputnik 1 is that it was initially supposed to be somewhere around 3 or 4 times the size that they launched it at. So Sputnik 3 was actually originally supposed to be Sputnik 1, but then they sent Sputnik 1 just as a proof of concept. And really, when you think about it, you're thinking, how do we get from a satellite that's, the size of a beach ball, somewhere around 23 inches, 50, I think that's 58 centimeters, weighing somewhere around 83 kilometers, something like that, to things like the James Webb Space Telescope that are, 131 meters across. And it weighs obviously a lot more than that. So my discussion would be all about the history as well as the building of satellites.
Okay, I'm really looking forward to hearing you at the festival. And probably most of us are very curious how did you manage to start gaining experience such early? As I suppose you have always been an outstanding and talented young person, and I also heard that you've always imagined yourself as a satellite engineer and you wanted to work at NASA. And did you have any extracurricular activities in your high school or during your studies? How did you spend your free time?
Yeah, so in high school, I was involved in different clubs and after school activities. I played sports. I was into art and things like that. But a lot of my time after school in high school I was actually at NASA. I volunteered there. I had a great mentor that kind of just helped me get exposed to NASA culture and also allowed me to continue the project that I was doing from over the summer. So that took up a lot of my free time outside of, like I said, the extracurriculars I was in. Once I got into college, it was pretty much the same thing. I was the leader of different clubs and organizations, still involved in sports and things like that. And I was still able to work on the projects, whether it was in a lab at my university or whether it was actually going down to NASA. And that was the nice thing because everything was local for me at that time.
That sounds great. So you're really working hard. You started your career or internship at NASA when you were 16 years old, right? How did you do that? How did your adventure with NASA begin?
So that's a funny story. Before that, the summer right before that, like I said, I wasn't always the best kid, but the summer before that, my mom had me get a summer job. I was actually in charge of cleaning one of the local high schools. And that was a super, super humbling experience for me. So from there, I volunteered at a NASA summer camp, and I met some people that were interested in getting some additional talent for their internship program. I applied to that internship program, and I really never looked back since then. So it was really just from me having a humbling experience one summer and deciding that I wanted to do something a little more interesting the next summer. And luckily I met the right people, and that's how I got into my role.
Okay. So that sounds like it's possible, because some people think it's impossible to work there, I think.
Yeah.
And you were listed in the Forbes list of 30 most important people under 30 years old. 15 years ago, would you believe that you will be in the point of life where you are now?
Not at all. Life is it's unpredictable. I'll say that I honestly didn't see something like this coming. I thought it would come later in life, but if you apply yourself and you keep at things that you count as a dream of yours, then I don't see why anything can't be possible. I'm a real believer that if you put your mind to something, and if you push yourself enough, you can do anything with the right guidance, obviously, and with I'll call it a little luck.
Yeah, I heard you talking about mentorship, but we'll talk about that also later. And about this planning and future, I think it's not good to plan everything, because there is always a chance that something might not work as we planned. So maybe it's better to see what will happen in the future.
Right. Don't be so afraid to deviate from a plan that you have, or to have a plan B. There's nothing wrong with having a backup plan.
Yeah. And because you're such a successful person, most of us are probably curious about what you do every day, and what does your typical day look like, and how many hours do you devote to work?
So I'll answer the latter part of your question first. In terms of hours dedicated to work, I believe that your work is meant for work, and then your outside life or your personal life is meant for that time as well. So for work, I tend to dedicate the full 40 hours or a little more. But I typically, other than this time, I don't really take work home with me, because I like to separate the two. I work diligently and hard while I'm in the office, but when I'm out the office, unless it's of critical importance, I'm technically out the office. My typical day, I'll start off with my former project, James Webb. My days on that project were long hours in the clean room environment, and that's when you put on like the full bunny suit with the mask, and you kind of you sterilize and things like that before you go into the flight environment where you're putting together the actual satellite. When I was on that project, we would spend 8 to 10 hours in those clean rooms, and I was traveling around the United States with the satellite at the time. So it was some travel involved. There was a lot of, like I said, a lot of that clean room flight integration things. There was a lot of paperwork. There were a lot of meetings, but that wasn't typical from day to day. A lot of my day-to-day stuff was really just putting the satellite together. My typical day-to-day now is like I said, a lot of meetings. I interface with a lot of different vendors and things like that. I'm on a new project that's a series of weather satellites that we use. And during this phase of the mission, we're actually in the process of building and getting the satellite together so that it can go to the launch facility and eventually launch. And when the satellite launches, then I'll sit on console and I'll help collect data and things like that come down to our different ground stations and things like that. So right now, my day to day is meetings, getting everything together for the satellite. When it actually launches, that's when we get into 12-hour day shifts where we're actually monitoring the satellite, which is a little more entertaining, a little more fun. But you have to work up to that launch to make sure everything's okay, so that when it goes into orbit, you can do all those more interesting things.
Okay. And how do you spend your free time? Do you do some sports?
Yeah, so now I still do. It's more just exercise, going to the gym than anything now. I'm a photographer. I really like to take photographs. I like to cook. I like to eat and travel.
Yes, I've seen that on your Instagram. Your meals look really great.
Oh,
and
tasty.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's what takes up most of my time. I mean, just spending time with the wife, traveling when we can, trying to get into and do different things. So like I said, I really try to have that work-life balance. Giving your all at work, but when you are home, don't burden yourself with things that happen in the office and stuff like that.
Okay, so you think separating your personal life from your work is important, and also having your time for things that you like doing. But probably you love what you're working at right now. But
yeah.
You think you're spending free time to have a rest is also important.
100%.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you what kind of projects are you working at now, but you've already answered that about your when you told about your typical day. But can you tell us something more about these projects?
Yeah, so I'm on a project called JPSS, which is Joint Polar Satellite System. Basically, like I said, it's a chain of weather satellites that we use to not only monitor, precipitation, rainfall, things like that. It also monitors natural disasters. So a series of hurricanes that were coming toward the U.S., we monitored that. We monitored the Amazon rainforest fires. We monitored a few other things globally. Actually, I think I had to figure it out. But when the coronavirus incident initially started, we monitored changes in the ozone around different areas of the globe based on what areas had the shelter in place, or what areas were kind of quarantining and things like that. So we can really use the satellite for a lot of different things based on what the global need is. So like I said, on this project, I currently work as a senior satellite engineer, which involves not only working with contractors and vendors on the actual building assembly of the satellite, but also working with the database, which is basically, you can think about it as the brain of the satellite. So once you put the satellite into orbit, you need this database in order to communicate with it properly, or in order for the ground station and the flight ops team to communicate with it properly.
Yeah. Okay. And do you, in your free time, do you also work on any mechanical or electronic project, or are you on your own, or are you already sick of it after work?
No, not at all. So typically I call them side projects. I haven't done a side project in a little while. I do, stuff around the house and things like that, but nothing I would classify as a mechanical or electrical project. I've thought about researching and getting into like the development of not ventilation systems, ventilators, because of the need for them now. Just to kind of give my assistance where I can. Another thing that me and a friend of mine are kind of into is 3D printing. So there's a lot of computer animated design that you can do outside of the office. And if you buy your own personal 3D printer, you can just 3D print your own stuff when you're at home. But that's all just kind of side hobbies and things you can get into with skills that you use at work, just using them at home as needed.
Yeah, these kind of projects sounds like a lot of fun for me.
Yeah.
And now let's jump into something a little bit different, because I've read that you once said art and science blend pretty well, right? Could you elaborate on that sentence and what is art to you?
Yeah, so if I can give you a really, really short background to why I said that. As I was growing up and wanting to be involved in NASA, I'd visit my dad a lot in his office, and his office mate was an artist. So he was an engineer and also an artist. So he went to school as an art major, or he had an art minor in school, and he was really, really good at drawing. So when I was in his class, not his class, when I was in my dad's office, he would help me draw different pictures and things, and really just help get my drawing skills to a point where I could say, hey, I can draw pretty well. And that helped me not only with designing things and getting my concepts across in my now everyday career, but it also helped with my picturing of 3D images, which help with ultimately my CAD modeling and things like that go toward that 3D printing and go toward the design of satellites and things like that. So when I said that art and science blend pretty well together, I meant in that regard, in terms of, if you have those artistic skills, it helps you to imagine stuff in the third dimension. It helps you to, be able to revolve something in your head or draw it from each different side based on what perspective you're looking at. And then to work on a project like the James Webb Space Telescope, I mean, the first thing you think about, at least the first thing when I look at it, is, wow, that telescope's really, really pretty. Like it's, it's gold. It has the black outline and things like that. And I think there was an artistic edge that went into not only the visual, how it looks visually, but also how it deploys mechanically. And if you've never seen the satellite deploy, if it starts off kind of in the shape of a rectangular cylinder or something like that. And as it deploys, it becomes this, like I said, this tennis court size satellite, which you didn't think it could deploy into something like that. And the process of how that happens is just really cool and really, really artistic, and really, it flows really well to me. So that's why I think art and science blend.
Yeah, I saw that telescope and it really looks beautifully. And I also think that art is visible in many aspects of science. For example, when I look at the pictures that can be made with a telescope, the pictures of planetary nebulas, they are so pretty. It looks like a painting painted by an artist. It's really beautiful. And also, for me, art and science can be also visible in different fields, because, for example, I study computer science, and some people say that programmers are not only coding, they are also creating something, because they not only have to code. Generally, most of their time is thinking about what to write and how to code it to be for the code to be efficient. And also they have to write the code, especially when they are working in a team, for other people to understand that. And the code must be really clear and readable for other people. So it's maybe also some kind of art for some people.
Yep, 100%. I know exactly what you mean. I agree. Everything you said, you're creating something. So it's definitely a blend. You can definitely see a blend there.
Yeah. And you told previously something about mentorship and motivation, and I wanted to ask a few questions about that. And my question is, what motivates you the most? Because for sure, motivation is important when we want to achieve something. And what is your motivation?
So my motivation is to impact the next generation. That's really what drives me forward. Each and every day I go to work. When I do podcasts like this, when I go and speak to conferences, is how can I impact someone else that wants to thus impact the world. I realized that being in the sciences and being in a field like space that is constantly developing, you can't rely on yourself alone. Like for me to put all my energy into only building my career, I feel is really, really selfish. Not only because exploration is like the baseline of being in the STEM field, but because you have to realize at some point there's a means to an end as far as your career is concerned. And, the next generation will be the people to go to Mars and to go to Saturn or, Jupiter or where have you. And I just want to be a part of helping those people get the correct skills that they need, get the correct guidance that they need in order to be great in their respective career. And I say that unselfishly because I had mentors that helped me get to where I am today. And I wouldn't be where I am today without their guidance. So I realized I need to do that for someone else.
Yeah, I think that's really really good how you're thinking, because one person can't do everything by himself. We have to work together, and also, as you've said, prepare a good future for the next generation, because they'll be able to do even more.
Mm-hmm.
And about motivation, I've heard many times people laughing at some kind of coaching and motivational sentences, such as, it's one of my favorites. What's the point of being alive when you don't at least try to do something remarkable? And as I said, I consider it really inspirational and powerful. What do you think about it?
No, I think it's really inspirational. I think it's really powerful. I feel as though inspirational or motivational sentences for everyone resonates with that person differently. Just because based on, their life experience, what they've been through, what they hope to accomplish, and also just their characteristic. So it might not resonate to you and I as the same it does to them. But I think the purpose behind these motivational and coaching coaching quotes are really to help and encourage and push those people that are willing to accept them. So I realize not everyone is open to my style of teaching or my style of mentoring, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be a compatibility between us two. As long as I try to get across to them. I think I've done my job well.
Wow, that was really deep, but it's true, that sentence that you've said, that people who want to do something will do that because it's something that they do want to achieve and they are motivated. And in your TED talk, you were speaking about setting targets for ourselves and planning their realization, which was, I must say, really also motivating for me. I immediately took a pen and noted my goals for the next 5 years and how I want to pursue them. And what is the purpose in your career and in your life now?
Oh man, the purpose. So I would say, man, the purpose in my life now is, I want to say again, I want to impact as many as possible. I'm excited for the future of space, the future of exploration. This is just a great time to be involved. And when you think about where we've come from and where we're going, on a global scale, that is, we had the exploration to the moon, and now we've decided, okay, we're going to go back to the moon, and hopefully to set up some facilities there this time, and we've got plans to go beyond ISS and even to go beyond the moon and to Mars. And so I really think this is a really good time to be on the forefront of these things as these technologies are being developed and as we're having the conversation and things like that. And it's cool to say, especially like going back to working on James Webb, I know in the next 15 years, it's going to be amazing for me to say, oh, I worked on James Webb. I did X, Y, Z. And now that satellite has discovered, what happened right after the Big Bang, or what happened after, the first stars were created and things like that. So the purpose in my career now, again, I sound like a broken record, but the purpose in my career now is just to set up whoever comes next, and to make my mark on my generation, thus enabling the next to go further.
Okay, that's beautiful, I think. And when you were talking about your motivation and your mentors, I wanted to ask also, who is your greatest authority? Maybe one of your mentors.
I want to say yes. I've got several. I've got several mentors that I love really dearly. I'll say each of them has a different role in my life. For example, I have mentors on the business side of things. I have mentors on the engineering side of things. I have mentors that are astronauts. I have mentors that are photographers. So it depends what I'm looking for guidance on. And like I said, I try to set myself up for, or I'd like to achieve this goal. Thus, I'm going to get someone that has walked this path before and kind of knows typical things that you might struggle with while going down this path. And I want to hear their story and hear where they come from. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it saves me time so that I don't have to make the same mistakes they did. and I feel like it makes you a better person for it at the end of it. But my greatest mentor, I'll say, I'll say my dad. He's one of my greatest mentors, just because he's really the person that really kicked all of this off in terms of the engineering field. He's a mechanical engineer, and just seeing his work ethic and seeing the cool projects he worked on and seeing what he did really encouraged me to pursue this path. And I don't take it for granted, because a lot of people aren't lucky enough to have both parents in their life, and they might not even be lucky enough to have one of their parents in their lives. So I don't take it for granted that I have my dad there to help guide me toward what I think is a really, really rewarding career. And then I get to do cool stuff like this, like talk to you guys and talk at different conferences and share my story and things like that. So definitely my dad.
Wow, it's really great that you have luck that you have such a great father. And could you tell us something more about him?
Yeah. So like I said, he's a mechanical engineer. He's worked in the field for 30 some years. Me and him are still pretty close. He lives about 20 minutes from me, not too far. Let's see, he's a musician. I got into music because of him. He plays piano, so he's a pianist, and I'm a percussionist, so I play drums and timpanis and cymbals and things like that. So I got into those instruments because of him. Let's see, what else does he do? Again, being a mechanical engineer, he was really hands-on. So a lot of the stuff I've learned to do around my house and like to my vehicles and things like that, I learned from him at a younger age. So just like the normal motions of just, having a father figure in your life that kind of incorporates you into different things is, again, something that I can't take for granted because not everyone has it. But, he helped develop me into the person that I am today. Of course, my mom was there. Of course, she was exceedingly helpful in raising me as well. And there's a lot of skills I learned from her as well.
Yeah, I saw on some kind of interview also that your dad was saying that he was really afraid how what you'll think about that, the fact that he is so many hours at work, and he told there that he asked you when you were little about your wish for Christmas, something like that, and you said that it was if you could be whole war, and it was so sad, but probably you now know what was his life like. You have the same now.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have a appreciation for it now. I realize how hard he worked, and how he had to sacrifice different things, and just the dedication he had to not only his work but also his family. And I think things like that is what really makes me separate my work life from my personal life. Like I said at the beginning, it's so crucial to have those two things separate, so that you can make time for your family or for whatever you really want. That's not just all work.
Yeah, it's. I admire you both. You're so
Thank you.
great authority for me.
Thanks.
Now, I wanted to ask you, and maybe let's let our imagination run free and focus more on the future. I saw that for the question, the development of which technology surprised you the most, you answered electric cars. What do you think when we will see almost only electric cars on our roads, because now they are getting really popular?
Yeah, they're really popular. The reason I answered that question like that is because I actually own an electric car, and I think that
What kind of electric car?
I have a Tesla.
Oh wow, my dream.
So the thing, so like just the technology in that thing is really cool, and I think I have more of an appreciation for it because I am a mechanical engineer and because I kind of know the mechanics of a standard vehicle. I just think, when you think about it on the surface level in terms of, this thing, in terms of repairs you have to make, it's almost no repairs outside of brakes. You don't have to worry about oil changes and any of your typical maintenance that you would have to deal with any other car. And then on top of that, you have, there was some question around the battery life and things like that. But, the thing comes with an amazing warranty. And now I sound like a Tesla commercial now, and I don't mean to, but I think the car is really cool. And there's a lot that goes into it. And then I think for me, the biggest thing was just getting like the full power of the car without having to go through, shifting gears and having a gearbox and things like that. I think that was one of the coolest things outside of not having to go to like a gas station, which is like really, really good for like situations like this that you never expect, like COVID. Like I haven't been to a gas station in 4 weeks because I charged the car at my house So it's really, it's convenient to have. I think it's a safer option. I think it's just, like I said, I can't express enough. It's really cool. But your answer to your question as far as when I think it'll happen, because like they're mainstream now, but they're not to the point where they're so affordable that everyone can go and get an electric vehicle, even a hybrid vehicle or a hybrid electric vehicle. So I'm thinking I'll have to put at least 20 to 25 years probably. Until it becomes more affordable to the point where we can get them all out there.
Yeah, that's probable. You said that you sound like a Tesla commercial, but I think and I hope that if I would have a Tesla in the future, I would say the same words because all of the people say that it's really great, and I think Elon Musk did what he wanted to do. That electric car doesn't have to be boring and ugly. These 100%. Cars are really beautiful. And about this question, when we'll see almost only electric cars, I've heard that it's the main problem is the battery in the car, because they are not that expensive. Only the battery is the most expensive thing in that car, and but it's getting cheaper. So maybe there will be one car in the future, like because electric cars were popular at the beginning of of producing the cars, and only after some time they were not that efficient, and now they are getting back the electric cars, and probably there might be one car that will be affordable for most of the people, that will change our everything in the car producing, because if it will be affordable, so that's everything in fact that is needed, because people will buy it because it's cheaper and it's more convenient. So that one car might change everything.
I think so. I mean, when you talk about how expensive the battery is, I mean, you look at a normal car, and then you can pretty much equate the other parts of that car to the battery of the electric car. But when you look at a normal car, the most expensive part is it's either the transmission or it's the engine. It's one of the two. But regardless, the electric cars don't have those problems. So, you have to think of what's the equivalent to that, and it would be the battery. And like you said, the batteries are getting better and they're getting cheaper. So I feel like at some point there'll be an overlap, and then they'll start getting more people to buy them.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
And now something more about astronautics. When do you think space flights will be accessible for maybe not most of the people, but they will be more accessible than they are now?
Let's see. How do I put this? So space flights for the, I'll call it commercial. So commercial space flights are beginning to be offered by private vendors and things like that. So you have SpaceX who will be offering some, Blue Origin, maybe Boeing and things like that. Whoever has the facilities to launch into low Earth orbit, or to LEO, or to right above the atmosphere, they'll start doing them as soon as humanly possible. As soon as they're approved to do it, I'm sure they will start doing it. I know that because they've started training the crews for this. So, we have astronauts that are part of the astronaut corps, and then you have different. I guess they're still called astronauts, but different astronauts that are part of the commercial crew program. So they'll fly for those private companies and things like that. And that's just like, round trip. Like, we'll just take you above the atmosphere and you'll come back. Or, other ones, more complicated ones, might say, oh, you'll take a lap around the Earth and then land safely back where you are. But I think that's coming really soon. I mean, as far as when it's affordable for everyone, I'm not sure. But in terms of when it'll be offered to just the general population, I think definitely under 5 years.
Oh wow, that's not much time. I hope it will be soon, because I would love to go to space.
Yeah.
And another question about the future and space. Mm-hmm. How do you imagine the world in 100 years? What do you think will happen in space technology, and how will it change?
I can only hope that we'll be so much further advanced than we are now. But that's just a hope for 100 years. Space technology, I'm hoping that, we take this initiative and this next jump to, like I said, get those facilities on the moon first, and then hopefully that'll take us to Mars. But I definitely think in 100 years we'll definitely have stuff on the moon. We'll definitely have stuff on Mars, or people will definitely have been to Mars in 100 years. I'm hoping that from other missions that we have, like James Webb and stuff like that, and I forgot the series of satellites that were discovering those planets that have water. or trace or that were similar to Earth. I forgot that series of satellites names, but hoping that people can start venturing out even further to do more detailed missions and things like that. What else about space technology? Okay, so how it'll change? I forgot the second part of your question. I think it'll change. It'll definitely be more mainstream. The private sector will definitely be included even more than they are today, and it'll just be in 100 years. I'm thinking it'll be common to take a trip to low Earth orbit. I'm thinking it'll just be not as normal as a plane ride, but I think it'll just be normal. I'm hoping that some of the space technology can also be incorporated into traveling. So, faster planes, different ways to travel, things like that. It's a lot that could happen in 100 years. That's a long time.
Well, yes, that's true. I've read recently about the Kardashev scale, and according to that scale, civilization of first type, also called a planetary civilization, can use and store all of the energy available on its planet, and the estimated potential of such civilization involves, for example, containing earthquakes and hurricanes, controlling and using thermonuclear reactions. And I think the previous question was really similar. When will our civilization reach the first time? Because it might be in about 100 years. But I wanted to ask also, when do you think, I want to ask if it's possible, but probably it is, but when? When will the technological singularity occur? When will how do people say, AI be better than people?
So I think right now Earth is between type 0 and type 1. Like you said, it might come in those 100 years. It might come even further than that. I guess a little background about the scale first for the listeners. I'll say is that it was a scale that was designed by a Russian astrophysicist, I think, in the 1960s, 1960 something. But anyway, he designed this scale that basically, like she said, equates to how advanced a civilization is. So type 1, like I said, is harnessing the energy that is in all available energies on the Earth. And yeah, I don't really know. Like at first, I always think like the first thing I always think on this scale is, okay, when are we going to get to type 2? Type 3, and I like to think.
Yeah, that's the best to dream about. But
I like to think
predict
so far.
is type first, in fact, because we can't see that far into future. I wanted to say also previously that I think some predictions maybe 50 years ago were so wrong. I mean, people, when computers started to be so popular not so long ago, people thought that, oh my God, when we have computers, we'll have robots and we'll have AI in a few years that will be so clever and that will even, I don't know, destroy the humanity, or that will be able to manage without people, in fact. And I think it was some time ago, people thought it will be faster and faster, but now maybe we are, I don't know, in fact, but maybe we're in a point where we have some physical boundaries. We can't jump through some things that are impossible with the technology that we have now. We can't do everything.
Yeah.
And in fact, the AI that
No, I was about to say, I think you're 100% correct in that. I think there might be some physical boundaries that we can't overcome. I think the reason that the ideal behind us getting to type 1, type 2, or type 3 was so popular was because it was put into mainstream media. Like a lot of people don't realize that just like the basic concept that Star Trek and Star Wars and all those franchises are based on is actually a type 3. I think it's a type 3 civilization. And for people to see that on the big screen, or for people to see that on their TVs, they automatically think, oh, okay, we can do that in, so many years or in my lifetime and things like that. And I think it being thrust in front of them like that is really what caused them to think, okay, we're close to being a galactic culture, which is type 3. We're close to building a Death Star because we have this computer. So yeah, I don't think it'll come for some time being type 1, because there's still a lot of stuff to do, or there's still a lot of ground to cover. But there's a lot of smart people out there.
Maybe there will be also a point, like with electric cars, that one car will change everything. So maybe we'll have some kind of material or new technology that will change and change our world and help us to be space traveling faster.
I won't say it's impossible. I won't say anything's impossible. I'll just say, I'm hoping for the best, or wishing for the best.
Yeah, me too. I wanted to say also previously about this civilization.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember though. I want to say that the AI, because I also thought that I've heard when I was little that the computers are faster, are better chess players than people, and I thought, wow, for sure the AI is now controlling us or something. But in fact, it's not that AI thinks itself. It's more like based on some, for sure in chess, it's based on algorithm, and it's based maybe on some statistics. It depends on the field. But I've heard, I don't know the how to play Go, but I've heard, which is more surprising for me, that Go is not a game like chess. You have to also maybe use your creativity or imagination. That computer won with some person a good person in Go, and that was more surprising for me. But maybe that's some kind of next step.
Yeah, interesting. I hadn't heard that. I have to look into that.
Yeah, I've heard about that in May, I think, 1 year ago.
Okay.
I have to read more about that. And another question that you said about next generation, our next generation, and I wanted to ask what challenges will the next generation of NASA engineers face?
Oh man, the next generation of NASA engineers are really gonna face the challenge, or the challenges of dealing with patience. I'll say that's like the first thing I think of in terms of these missions to Mars and these missions even further. You have to realize that these things take even more time, unless we do develop those technologies to help us fly faster. And still the same level of safety, but to fly even faster, or to get to those destinations faster. So, realizing that you might work on a project like, James Webb for 10 years to get it into orbit. And then once it launches, you still have to wait an additional year before it gets to its location, deploys, and is ready to give you data. So there's a aspect of patience that comes with this. It's an aspect of more challenging situations, because if you're talking about going to Mars, you have to adjust all your devices and your equipment for handling the planet of Mars, as opposed to handling the moon and things like that, or handling whatever planet you decide to go to. It's not just a one-stop shop, which again, circling back around to Type 3 Star Wars kind of environment, they just go kind of planet to planet without really much change of anything, and at light speed. So you just have to realize that it's a long game. And what's at the end, it's worth it. It's totally worth it to see the results of your work. But I think some of the challenging things they're going to have to adapt to, and that I'm hoping that we're helping them adapt to, is not only just the patience factor comes with it, but just the complexity of the challenges that they'll be facing.
Yeah, it probably in movies it looks so great that people just go into a spaceship and they travel in few seconds or few hours to another planet. But we're not we don't know, in fact, how much time it takes to reach another, even Mars. But I'm not even saying about other stars, how far they are. It's not reachable for us now, and it's really sad sometimes when I look into the sky and think, oh, I hope humanity will reach this point someday, but it's not sure because it's so far from us. Maybe another film that is more from a physics side. It's Interstellar. It's one of my favorite films.
Yeah.
It's so great because it touches the facts that maybe astronauts and scientists face. That when they were near the black hole, they knew that it takes, when they are 1 hour there, it takes 7 years, I think, something like that, on the Earth. And it was really, when I imagined that, it was oh my God, it's so terrible.
It puts it in perspective.
When I think about
it puts it into perspective for you.
My last question about NASA is how to get a job at NASA as an engineer. What kind of competencies are required, and can people from Europe or Poland be hired there?
So my understanding is, to work at NASA, you need at least, I don't even think you need a high school diploma to get in the door, but you need some education to get in as a government employee. You have to have a U.S. citizenship. You have to be a citizen of the U.S. To be actually a physical government employee. But the thing about it is that NASA partners with a ton of international partners. And because of them partnering with these international partners, there's a lot of different ways to work with NASA while not working directly for them. So another project I worked on, so even James Webb. So James Webb, for example, is a combined project between NASA and the European Space Agency, as well as the Canadian Space Agency. Most recently at a international space conference I met someone from is it Poland's Exploration Agency? I think I'm saying it wrong. But there's something in that area that they also have as well. And let's see what else. So the route that someone without a U.S. citizenship would take would probably be to work in one of those external auxiliaries. So basically working for another company that has partnerships or that does projects with NASA. And like I said, because the space industry is really an international. It's really an international partnership in industry. It's not just NASA. It's not just JAXA. It's not just different these individual different countries. It's a combination of everyone globally trying to get toward the same common goal of exploration of the universe. So to answer your question, I would say you can be hired. I would say not directly by NASA, just because unless you have that U.S. citizenship. But there are different ways that you can get into the space field.
Okay, so that's possible for us. Mm-hmm. I think our listeners know now how to get a job at maybe not only ASA but also in Europe or in our space industry. So I guess it's all for today. And thank you for listening. And I also encourage you to hear out our previous podcasts with Thiago Klapke and Maciej Korsan. And so, Kenneth, thank you for today. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you and hearing your lecture in October and SFI Academic IT Festival. And stay healthy.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for having me, even in these difficult situations. And we'll be in touch. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone in person.